Resident Evil 5.
Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Resident Evil 5 professional difficulty video walkthrough. This is chapter 4.1, it's called Caves, and we're going to be introduced to a new enemy, which I'm not the biggest fan of, and it's for just one reason this time, guys, nothing too grandiose. When they grab you, the longer they're on you, the more damage they do, and it's medial damage, so it's very small, but it's still damage, and on a difficulty where normally everything puts you to critical, you would think it would put you to critical, but it doesn't, so it just kind of annoys you. It's one of those goofy creatures, but the cool thing is, flash grenades will kill them instantly from the grenade launcher or from a flashbang, and you don't have to generally mess with too many of these particular creatures. They're kind of wonderful in Mercenaries mode because they enable you to extend your combo while you're moving without too much hassle because they die very quickly. But on Professional, in the campaign, they take a beating, so my advice is to, ideally, never fight them. Because it's never worth it. They take... Oh, there was a treasure above us then, damn it. But they take way too much ammunition for their worth, and they rarely ever drop anything too special in my experience. But once again, the drops are quite random, so who knows, maybe you'll get a grenade back or some treasure. But I'm just going to pop the grenade on for the additional speed, and we're going to run past this and hit this next door. You'll notice lots of pistol ammunition, incredibly frustrating to a player like myself, but if you're packing the pistol, feel free to pick it up and be useful with it. There are some great pistols in this game, and the pistol will work just as good as any of the other suppressive weapons when it comes to stopping the Manginis. I just don't use them. It's one of those weird things. I use them all the time at first, and then I move towards using the submachine guns. And I used to think that the submachine guns didn't really have a place in these games because they weren't damaging enough to compete with something like the shotgun, and you had the pistol for everything else, so why would you use it to replace the pistol? But it just goes to show how your mentality towards playing a game can shift as you change, and who knows, maybe I'll change back to a more pistol-orientated playstyle at some point, but right now, I really enjoy my club. But this is where this game begins to get a little bit more puzzle-orientated, which you might not have been expecting so far, because there hasn't been a lot of that. So they decide to introduce this African ruin that for some reason makes me think of like Aztec and Mayan way more than it does anything like indigenous to Africa. And I don't know why that is. It's not the game's fault, it's just, I suppose, my preconceived notions. But we come towards this vast ruin, and things start getting like weird with environmental hazards, strange puzzles, but great opportunities for treasure. So these levels are kind of goofy and different, but they do give you the riches on the other side of them. And the best part about getting money in this game is it means you can become stronger. And any game where getting ammunition, getting better upgrades, getting resources can benefit your character is something you definitely want to be doing on a harder difficulty, which is essentially obvious, isn't it? And this next sequence is actually pretty tough. So I get rid of the shield guy immediately, and then I come running up this corner. To our left there's going to be people dropping in, so throw one grenade there. That will stun them, run past it, but do not get set on fire. This next corner, if you can get past the clipping, there's going to be a bunch of guys running out of that room, so if you preempt them, they will not run out of the room and block you, and you can get to Sheva, and then you can hit the place that you're supposed to touch to get after this section, which means you don't have to fight any of those enemies and waste any of your ammo. The problem is I have kind of low life, and I'm going to be coming up against a sequence now which is quite tricky. So this is, think of it as like a cross. Each point of a cross is going to have people dropping in or spawning from the ground. It's a combination of a lot of bad things, and you can stay in there, get a bunch of treasure and kill a bunch of enemies, or you can hit the front of this, restart and get a checkpoint which gets rid of those guys that were behind you. And I did this because Shiva kept dying, and I don't know if she has the vest on at this point. You'll find out very shortly when I reload to see what no, she doesn't. But I put the vest on that section to see if I could keep her alive a little bit longer, and for some reason in those narrow tunnels, she kept dying, and I was using a lot of ammunition. I was having to go out of my way to put myself in danger to keep her alive, and I decided that the quickest and best, most optimized place to get through that was just to not deal. And sometimes those kind of strategies can be looked down upon in walkthroughs, which I understand it 100%, because a lot of people play to challenge themselves, and they don't want to run past things. They feel like there's some inherent cowardice to it, and it takes away from their achievement and their sense of satisfaction. So if you want to stand in that corridor and put your back against that wall, more power to you, brother. But I want to have strategies that show you a way to get through, that you don't need to have that kind of fortitude and willpower. So hopefully pushing forward like I just showed is going to help those people. That little siege as well, where I was using the shotgun, looked easy, didn't it? If you watch my fail video, you'll see a bunch of fails there, because it was nowhere near as simple as I just made it look. And again, that is one of the casualties of something like this. It looks way simpler than it is, and that's nothing to do with me being, crazy skillful or some godly RE5 player. It's because you don't see the mistakes and you don't see the fails in something like this. This is just a sequence of victories, and like any sequence of victories, the history is usually much uglier if it was honest. So just bear that in mind, guys, when you watch this and you're like, fuck this game, this looks easy, I'm not having this on my game's kicking my ass. My game kicked my ass too. I just got a lovely sequence of breaks, so to speak, where it didn't kick my ass quite so hard and I kicked it back. And that's all you're doing here, guys. You're looking for an opportunity to kick the game in the face, when it's not looking, preferably, to get that extra advantage and to overcome that adversity. And it can be a beautiful, majestic, graceful dance, or it can be an ugly, tooth and nail, busted up, black and blue struggle. And I think you need a bit of both for it to be a compelling walkthrough, so hopefully we've got a little bit of that in here. So this is a vast chamber filled with an environmental puzzle that essentially means you're going to be pulling these lavatory flushes on these random statues that are all different coloured, and when you do so, it's going to trigger different events of raising a staircase, spawning enemies, and you have to pull them all until the final one, and then the final one will spawn the crazy-backed caterpillar creature, and you have a choice to run away from it, but the quick time event to run away from it is incredibly fast, and if you mess it up, it's an instant death, and I didn't want to do that. And it leads me to a pretty interesting point that I want to discuss in this walkthrough. I don't think this game does difficulty very well, and you might be like, whoa, what makes you say that? So many reasons, but the one I'm going to focus on here is the difference between, is it rookie, the easiest difficulty, or amateur, and professional. The damage variables and the quick time speeds between amateur, professional, the damage that the enemies take when it comes to shooting them, is not that different. And you would think it would be, because it goes, what does it go? Amateur, normal, veteran, professional. That is a wide berth of gradual increases. But it doesn't feel like it. Like, don't get me wrong, on professional the enemies take a more of a beating. It is obvious in some certain sections, but for the most, if you're using the melee attacks, you don't feel it too much, especially on the Mangini's. The bosses, they just take a bucket load regardless of what you do, because the game is ridiculous like that. And then the quick time events are the same, intrinsically. They seem almost the same. Because I was streaming this section on amateur, getting S rank, so I could get one of those bobblehead things. Figures, I don't know what you call them. And I was playing, with my live chat and everybody, and we're messing about, we're relaxing, we're doing the game, we're talking. And I did this mission, and I ran away from the boss, and I died on the quick time event, even though I was mashing the button. And I was mashing the button as fast as I could mash the button. And I'm not, some crazy, ridiculous international track and field god player, because I'm not very good at mashing buttons. But I'm good enough to mash buttons in most video games. There are only a few situations where I can't mash to victory. And this is apparently one of those instances where I just wasn't fast enough. And I died on amateur. And I think it fucked my S rank as well, because the death affected the ranking. And it's the exact same on professional. It doesn't feel like it's any slower or any faster at all. It seems like it's the same thing. Which leads me to say that I don't think the difficulty is balanced well enough at all. On amateur, I don't think the game should be a struggle, because the reason for picking that difficulty is you don't want the game to be a struggle. You want the game to not be anywhere near as taxing as it can be. That's the point of an easier difficulty. So when you make your easier difficulty harder than most other games' normal difficulty, you're ostracizing your audience in a lot of ways. And you might think, well, you're the difficulty guy, why the fuck would you be talking about making games too easy? And that's not the point that I'm trying to make here, guys. I don't personally mind it as a player. I just think, what's the point? Because the game has harder difficulties, and if you want a harder experience, you pick those. The people who pick those easier difficulties don't want the game to destroy them every 5 seconds, and that can happen on Amateur. You can die in 3 hits on that difficulty, because you still take big damage, there's still just as many enemies, and the enemies all take a lot of ammunition to kill, even though you get way more ammo, but they still take a beating. And it's just this thing of... I was surprised, actually, how my results on Professional mirrored my results on Amateur. Because it was almost the same kind of experience outside of, wow, he took an extra bullet, or wow, my gun's nowhere near as strong as it was on, you know, when it was fully upgraded, and things like that. But I need to speak about this sequence. As soon as you trigger that spawn and the music plays, I run all the way back here and I start killing the archers. They have an uncanny ability to miraculously fire god grenades. Do you see that just then? They have amazing aim, amazing range, and splash damage, and it's an explosive, so it does a lot of damage. We're on Professional, it does a lot of damage anyway. You are not safe where I'm standing, because they can still hit you. If you want to see one of those miracle shots, it happened in that fail video I keep mentioning. But as long as you get rid of those people with the Rambo bows, then you'll have no issue, because these people have to run towards you, and if you have a rifle, you can just pop them off at a distance, and you can stay nice and comfortable. And you'll notice Sheva's using the Dragunov because we're upgrading it, and she's a fantastic shot. Sheva is an amazing shot. Sometimes she's dumb as fuck and terrible, but other times she is like Wesley in Wanted, so it can be very useful giving her something like this in this kind of range. But this strategy is 100% defensive, because if you push forward, will get bombarded by the artillery of those idiots with the bows, and then you'll get rushed down by people with sticks. And the spear guys are one of the most dangerous enemies on the game, because they transition from moving into attacking way quicker than they should. And once again, oh, here we go. You see what I mean? It's a good job I was on the ball when I was playing, because I spotted it immediately and I moved. The good news, they don't have that much range when it comes to their splash damage. The splash is very modest, very fair, but I still think that enemy's fucking broken, and I would change it personally. But we got some rifle bullets back, which is nice. You can hear that there's plenty of enemies still to come, but for some reason they're having trouble pathing to me. So I'm going to push up gradually here, just in case I trigger another spawn, and just in case there's any more archers left. Because the only threat here are the archers. Everybody else I'm comfortable with. Here is the spawn on the corner for people who try to rush this section. So shotgun to the ground. Ooh, we took that guy's head. And then spear guy's about to chuck his spear. Ooh, that is something I've not talked about. You might have noticed this. Ooh, that was lucky. Now here he comes. Really? That was the 1 out of 10 chance. Any other situation he would have grabbed then, but he struck. See what I mean? They like to grab when they're at your back. But he punched, which is very rare. So there's this technology that's at place in this game that is also evident in Resident Evil 4, but I don't remember it being quite as egregious. And when you aim your weapon at an enemy and they're in a neutral state, they will do an evasion move that is literally a counter to you aiming to them. And on the surface, this seems perfectly fine, doesn't it? When somebody flashes a laser sight in your face, you're going to duck or move or not have it in your face, because you don't want to. You can go blind. They're very dangerous. So I'm completely with that. That's fine. But when I aim a rifle at you with no laser sight, and you're like 500 yards away, and you do a cheeky little duck just as I shoot at you, that's bullshit. And that's what this game does. It's the locust head bob, and if you've never played Gears of War, you don't know what I mean. But if you've ever sniped in Gears on the campaign, the second you get your aimer on their face and you fire, they duck. It's like having a friend watching your screen in competitive multiplayer on the same television, where you get that moment where you're behind them and they can't see you, and they look on your screen, and as soon as you get your aim, they move, because they've seen it, and they cheat. And everyone's had that friend who cheats. Everybody's been that person who cheats, because it's human nature to you know, see the information your eyes are picking up in your periphery and use that. Sometimes people are just literally the leer, they don't care. But that's what the computer does. And it does it for a simple reason. There's a piece of programming in these enemies that when you aim at them, they have this auto-reaction. And it's the same as in God Hand. In God Hand, if you do a guard break to certain enemies, and it's unsuccessful because they're not blocking, they will have a programmed counter that they'll do every time. Azel's a great example. If you try and guard break Azel, he will sweep you. So whenever you try a guard break against that guy, if you follow it by a side dash, you will dodge his counter every time, and you'll stay close and you'll be completely 100% safe. Obviously, if you hit him, you didn't have to dodge, but you did it anyway and you stay in the pocket. And that's because he has programming to immediately respond the frame after you do that move. He has a reaction. It's the same as Final Fantasy XII when you do those gambit systems to program your people to do specific things in situations. And it's no different here. Aim at someone's head, if you give them enough chance, they'll do that countermeasure because that's what they're programmed to do. And now we have this piece of dog shit, which is 100% luck and bullshit. If she pulls this lever and gets to you without dying, she's a good Sheva. If she dies, which she will do numerous times, she's a douche. And then you're going to get attacked by Conan Raveman and his buddy with the stick. So, at this point, if this was just me on my own, I would isolate all these people and I would kill them with melee attacks. But because Sheva gets involved and she starts getting killed, I have to pull the shotgun out and waste ammunition. It always irritates me to have to do this because I know I could have done it better. But you know when you keep failing and it's not your fault, you get frustrated. And frustration is the easiest way to kill motivation in my mind. So instead, I'm just going to suppress because it gets really crowded down here. And it's not exactly too clear what the game wants you to do at this point, because it's just kind of a gauntlet of dudes. And I wonder, but I've not tested, if you can just run to the next item you've got to pull and pull the switch and maybe it despawns all the people. But look at this. A lot of dudes, they all have the potential to throw spears, they all have the potential to kill Sheva because she's not playing very well, and I'm firing everything I can to try and stop them, and that guy went straight through my bullets and hit me anyway, which, you know, whatever. Resident Evil 5 being Resident Evil 5, but the shotgun's on now, no nonsense, put them down, keep them down, and I should have done that way earlier, but I'm a very stubborn person when I play games. I want to do things my way, and sometimes you just cannot force that round peg into the square hole. But we both now have very low life, and there's a boss coming up. And you might be thinking, well, what are you going to do? You know, you have no life, how can you defeat a boss? Well, if you didn't see the early video where I mentioned, having this life and having full life is intrinsically the same on professional, because most things, and that's 99% of things, will put you to critical anyway. The only problem you're going to face when your life is like this is the movement penalty. I think you move something like 10% slower. I don't know if that's accurate in any way, but it is a movement penalty of sorts. The one consolation prize is it's not as bad in a game like this than it would be in a game like the original Resident Evils, like 1, 2, and 3. Because in those games, the movement penalty really affected things because you didn't have the capability that you do in this game. Oh, by the way, this trap here is great, but you need more mines to kill this boss on professional. If I'd have had 2 stacks of mines and put 10 mines there, I would have killed this boss pretty much after the cutscene. But what happens is because I died and it didn't work, I don't have any mines laid down now, so you'll notice the bombs that I just set don't exist and I have 2 stacks of mines now. So that triggers the fight. He stands on the bomb. All I'm going to do here, guys, is I'm going to get some space and I'm going to chuck down more mines because I don't want to waste my ammo because I'm still kind of mourning how much I used against those Mangini guys. So I don't even go for the weak point. I want to use the bombs. They only cost me 3,000 gold, which in the grand scheme of things is nothing. There goes the second one. And then I'm going to drop the final stack. And I think all it takes then is 1 or 2 shots. Or this might even kill him. But the mines are a fantastic tool that you can use a lot in this game should you choose to. It's just not really my playstyle. So there's the knockdown, and then I go boom, 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 4, 5, 6, there you go. So, once again folks, If you come here with an upgraded arsenal or better weapons, then these sequences will be considerably quicker. If you don't, then you'll be fighting for a bit longer, but the good news, we used those mines perfectly. They're really cheap, they do a good amount of damage to this boss, and they saved us a lot of ammunition, but we still had to pump in enough rounds to, to put down an elephant, but we got there in the end, and that's all that matters. So the next mission is going to be another tricky one, environmental puzzles, lots of environmental damage, and then lots of those like crazy aboriginal tribal dudes with dangerous sticks and shields and masks, and a veritable nightmare. But we'll wait for Sheva, she takes her sweet time coming to us, and then we'll get on with the rest of the game. So thank you very much for watching, and you take care now.